health system. We'd now like to hear from a well-known celebrity in our sector, Dr. Attilio Speciani, an expert in plant therapy and nutrition at the University in Milan, a member of the Association of Complementary Medicine, scientific director of Aerosalus. We'll be talking about food, inflammation and oxidative stress, the role of BAFF. So from what I've understood from what you said, trying to explain to me, you are claiming that everything, the energy of nature, is strictly linked to each other. Science is discovering these close links between inflammation, oxidative stress and disease by constructing the basis of a holistic view to be transformed into treatment.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Chairman just informed me to keep it short, so less than 20 minutes. I'll be as fast and concise as I can. Let me start with a few pictures. I spent some time in Haiti this last spring. Mean age of the population is 19. One child out of 2 never reached the age of 5, and my experience with nutrition enabled me to work on a project developing peanut butter with local resources in order to give the necessary calorie input to 7,000 children that can have bread and peanut butter every morning. Another important and touching experience, and I'll tell you more about it later, and I'll close my presentation on that, the need to understand how to convey information to the people. Of course, when you meet a diabetic person, you have to tell them never to eat food with sugar. And you meet an obese person and say you need to make physical exercise, and never get into the personal sphere, enabling the person to understand how the patient-to-doctor relation has enabled them to understand how to feel better and what to do to feel better. Working in Haiti, I understood that I could, of course, help people by explaining scientific concepts, but we needed to understand their culture, such as the voodoo philosophy, and integrate the scientific and the voodoo concepts to be very effective. The holistic approach is no longer meant for philosophers and gurus only. In fact, we have enough information to unify practice and theory. There is a link, a well-documented link between oxidative stress, low-intensity inflammation, hormonal signals and messages, neuropsychic system and immune system. Of course, there's food intolerance as defined by Samson up to 2004. Clark published a paper on food intolerance and allergies. But very few authors talk about food and nutrition and oxidative stress as important causes for all that. Is the cough and cold virus responsible for obesity, as Paolo mentioned in this presentation? Nobody's ever looked at BAFF. It's a substance that belongs to the tumor necrosis factor family. It's a cytokine. It is no antibody. They we originally worked on IgEs only because they had important business implications. And of course you need to be business oriented in this, as we all know. The BAFF, the B-cell activating factor, has actually been found to be important. People that had no allergies, had no GI tract conditions, but had major disorders triggered off by certain types of food. This substance has an inflammatory potential and can cause inflammation and major oxidative stress, closing the circle of food-related phenomena with low-grade inflammation and oxidative stress. Of course, we can understand people may develop inflammation and irritations because they have a cappuccino and a croissant every morning, but we can stop that by weaning ourselves off certain types of food. In 2010, a paper, a double-blind, randomized trial was published on IgE and food. So a nutritional program can be developed for people that suffer from migraine. This is the first randomized controlled trial ever published on the link between migraine and food. This is the reason why we've been working on a Recola program. It is a scheme which is gradually being developed to have a nutritional program based on the reduction of inflammation and promoting healing power. This is so important, not because we need to identify the underlying cause and say you must not eat walnut or almond. Of course, you're not going to develop problems because you eat almond every now and then. Some people do have a reaction to certain types of nuts, but we really need to understand what's the reaction to yeast, hydrogenated vegetable fats, wheat, and high salt containing food. So, of course, you may have a reaction to bell peppers. I've been working for over 30 years. But people that do have an allergy to bell peppers already know about that and will report them to you. But we need to get more information about their eating strategies. We keep hearing about the inflammatory bowel disease and colon. There's increase in neutrophils in the gut mucosa. There's a psychological component, but we can't say it's a psycho-neurological problem only. Of course, by doing so, you fail to consider other important aspects. And the anti-Saccharomyces cerevisiae antibodies responsible for Crohn's disease have been studied. Crohn's disease patients have to eat less bread. Arthritis, for instance, we have inflammation and adipokine-related diseases. My brother will talk about it in the afternoon. When you have incorrect carbohydrate and vitamin intake in your diet, there may be persistent allergic and respiratory conditions. Children that systematically eat some kind of type of food in the morning, they suffer from asthma, they have oxidative stress and food induced inflammation, and so sometimes it's a very one-way approach, looking at one area only. You need to be more holistic. Cancer is well known to be linked to oxidative stress and inflammation, so we need to implement total prevention. We started 2004 and 5. Cancer, heart disease, allergy, obesity, diabetes and depression are linked to inflammation and insulin resistance. And here I have two new and innovative elements. Fitzpatrick's on the Journal of Clinical Immunology wrote that the alteration of homeostatic balance, so when you have oxidative stress in the body, it induces as a defense immune reaction, and that's understandable because the immune system is there to respond to certain attacks. If you have an increasing inflammation, a toxicological condition, the immune system will respond to that and react to that. Hence, asthma can be interpreted as an evolution of this condition of oxidative stress and asthma. This is a recent paper published July this year, and I know that when I prepared my presentation that was to be published in a conference proceedings, the paper had just been published, and I reported that to Giorgio because it highlights the importance of the hypoxia-inducible factor. Hypoxia, loss of oxygenation, leads to allergic inflammation of the airways. So in asthma and rhinitis patients, it's a bit like BAFF. Nobody ever looked for it because we used to say, well, and it's a cultural problem, if you have bronchitis, you must have a bacteria. But for God's sake, the bacteria are not the only ones responsible for inflammations. We have behavioral, toxicological, environmental factors. We eat, breathe, relate to the body. So we have the hypoxia-inducible factor. There's a lack of oxygen, oxygen deficiency. So you may say this is going to be tackled with new pharmacological treatments. We've been there for a while, and we know that these treatments already do exist and can be used accordingly. Dr. Benedetti will tell us about his experience in this area. We have this paper on the hypoxia factor is closing a circle, accounting for the fact that the circle is being closed, thus perceiving the potential integration of treatment and prevention, not only for asthma and rhinitis, but other conditions as well. Some additional data. This is a conference held July 2010, London, the European Conference of Allergology. So we're leaving genetics, finally. Thanks to epigenetics, the possibility to change behavior, situations and responses, we can obtain important information. Rudolf Valenta precisely defined the following, that the anti-yeast antibodies that we produce, that we have a test for that. We've been collaborating with an important laboratory in this region. We can identify reactivity to yeast. Dr. Valenta said, if we produce many anti-yeast antibodies, we find out that the 5 bodies where the antibodies blocks the yeasts also block the superoxide dismutase, which is the same molecule, the same molecular setup. So depending on what we did, this is only one example, we can block certain indispensable enzymatic functions, so important for our metabolism. We are now aware of that. So we need to consider the epigenetic regulation, nutrition integration, lifestyle, controlling allergies and food intolerance, low dose integration and supplementation, correct meal times. And we can control our 400 meters of bowels in the best way with correct nutritional supplementation. In my latest book, Recovering Food tolerance. I insisted on this. There is no enemy food. There are very few good foods left. We need to rely on them. We have to stop saying this, I can't have that, I can't have that. So many people refuse to eat certain types of food systematically, and this is not correct. We didn't go for, we must not know for one single type of food. We need to work on groups of nutrients. So this is the dietary scheme. When you have well-established food intolerance, people have the right to gradually reinstate certain foods and adopting the right eating habits, like not having usual food at least one day a week. Of course, scientific progress is continuing. This is about reintroducing peanuts. Peanuts may cause death in many children. When it was given subcutaneously with particular vaccination, there were many people that died. By weaning children, so by going from a situation of allergy to tolerance, thanks to interleukin-10 production, the right mechanism can be promoted. We can see practical aspects of treatment, eating natural, controlling food intolerance, use natural antioxidants in fruit and vegetables, supplementing with rebalancing oxidants such as cell food, physical exercise, controlling environmental pollution to reduce the negative stimuli, particularly allergies. So I'm taking methylsulfonylmethane. It is so difficult to pronounce this word. How can anyone say that? It's MSM. It is useful as an antioxidant and it has an anti-allergic function as well. It's a detoxifying product for the airways against environmental pollution and its impact on our airways, especially during the winters, with even very polluted areas. We know that mitochondria play an important role here. Last night we were offered the mitochondrial wine for dinner, and our friend Nino Bianchi will talk about this, because mitochondria enable us to breathe. It is supplementation which enables energy to express itself, and breathing is at the center of the process, and we know that eating the wrong food, we go back to the idea of the anti-yeast antibodies according to Rutul Valenta that can block metabolism and the breathing function. So we need to be adopt an integrated approach. Allergies, oxidative stress, we need to have a correct approach. Well, my time is up. I'm about to conclude. I've stayed within my time limits. I said 17 minutes. So rehabilitation from allergies with correct eating habits, correct nutrition. This is very beneficial for all. We're all following the same path. And in conclusion, let me go back to my experience with the voodoo doctors. Everything is linked, tout c'est lié in French. He was able to convey a very important message, and the Indian chief who was hugging the speaker in the video clip that we saw at the beginning, all all this is so important as a positive feedback and is linked to the Christian and scientific approach for better communication with people to obtain the benefits we are looking for. We know this is one of the aspects that I learned in Haiti. We can say walk, breathe, supplement, eat this kind of fruit, take this substance to let your spirit express its energy for your growth and your health. And this is a very important sentence. It's a sentence that can be applied to all of us. So this is the holistic approach. Science, heart and soul must be integrated in the same context on the way to better health.
Grazie dottor Speciani, perché
Professor Speciani's brilliant talk is yet more evidence that re-educating energy, the antioxidative effect and diet are all important for every human being.